Welcome to the Jay Kim Show. This is your host, Jay Kim. I am an investor, author, and fitness entrepreneur, and for the first time in Asia, I sit down with the world's most brilliant minds in business, investing, and entrepreneurship. You'll learn all the secrets, strategies, and formulas to becoming a successful entrepreneur directly from the masters. If this is your first time listening, thank you for stopping by. This podcast is produced every week with the goal of providing actionable insight to you, the listener, with every single episode. And now, on to the show. Today's guest is Khailee Ng, the managing partner of 500 startups in Southeast Asia. Khailee is a rock star, entrepreneur, investor, and startup founder with a long history of success, starting from his very first substantial exit, which was a 5-month-old daily deal group buying website that he created called Groupon. He sold this company to Groupon in 2011. 2 years later, Khailee found his second exit, which was a social media news sharing website called says.com. This one he sold to a Malaysian media giant, Catch Media. And after he did that, he spent some time angel investing, very successfully, mind you. And then he went on to full-time investing by joining the 500 Startups group. I met Khailee several years back, probably around 2012, when he had first joined the 500 Startups collective as an entrepreneur in residence. And we've just remained friends the whole time. He is a very interesting guy, super smart, and towards the end, he goes pretty deep into some spiritual stuff, how he sees the world playing out, and the dramatic lifestyle change that he's made recently after having achieved success and wealth. I think you're going to find this one very interesting. Khailee is no stranger to the crowd here in Southeast Asia. Let's get right into the show. You're going to like this one. Khailee, thanks so much for joining the Jay Kim Show. We're really excited to have you on the show. You're quite well known here within Southeast Asia and Asia, Greater Asia, and probably the U.S. You probably have a pretty decent following as well. And why don't you, just for the guys and gals tuning in from overseas, or people perhaps that haven't heard of you, maybe you could give us a quick intro of yourself, quick background, and how you became a successful entrepreneur.
Oh man, the excitement is all mine, you know. I've just hit the big time, man. I'm the Jay Kim Show now. Watch out, world, coming at ya. Yeah, you're right. You know, I'm doing this for all my fans out there, all these screaming 8-year-old girls and boys in kindergarten, and no,
that's right.
But yeah, okay, I'll give you a quick spin, and well, I know you've accused me of being a successful entrepreneur. I identify myself more with the word creative spirit. You know, I've been creating things from a very young age, maybe writing little poems all the way to writing songs and, you know, little things. And fast forward, you discover the powers of the internet and you're hooked. You know, next thing you know, I created I grew up in Malaysia, spent most of my life doing stuff out in Malaysia. First business I kind of got lucky with was an e-commerce business. It was the second largest e-commerce operations in my country, and we built it in 3 months. And then Groupon decided to acquire it when they were expanding internationally.
Wow. Was it a group buying site as well?
Yeah. It was a straight up clone, dude. You know, I just decided to rip it off, like my partner and I.
Well, it's funny because we had I had Danny Young on the show who did You Buy I Buy here in Hong Kong. He also exited to Groupon. So.
Same. No, Danny and I were like brothers, man. Like we're part of the same Groupon Asia mafia who kind of got lucky with some of those. But like I'm really proud of the other business that I was building simultaneously. It's a media business called says.com. Now, what I love about that business was that it was kind of like BuzzFeed before BuzzFeed, and it became the largest news website in my country. And no other online news site has as much audience as the says.com and its sister sites in the different languages that Malaysia has. And Malaysia's got the Malay language, it's got the Chinese language, and it's got the English language, right? So we got them all. And we don't make any money from banner ads at all. Like we've been selling sponsored content, sponsored stories from earlier on. And yeah, really proud of that business. We kind of merged it with a few other sister sites, as I mentioned, and now it exists as a listed entity in the Malaysian Stock Exchange. Right, and so after doing those two businesses, I just wanted to spend more time with creative people.
Right.
Who wanted to do things. And I gave him money and spent some time with them building other businesses. You could accuse me of being an angel investor at the time, so I did some of that, and so that went well for me. But I'll tell you one thing, Jay. At that time, though, being like this Malaysian kid who just wanted to do fun stuff, I always looked up to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley was like the mecca of entrepreneurship, but you go there and want to, pay homage to the gods of entrepreneurship and tech over there, right? And be like Zuck, right? So I kind of, I kind of had that kind of in my mind, and I said, you know what? All this stuff that I'm doing out here in Malaysia is fun, but if I'm making it in the big leagues, I gotta go to the Valley. So that was the idea at the time.
So just for some context, what age were you? What year was this, and what age were you at that point?
Well, I'm 32 right now. This year I'd be 33. So this was 4 or 5 years ago. I was 28, 29. Yeah,
right.
29. Yeah, 28, 29. And so I got myself there by chance, and I kind of identified like who I'd want to meet and who I want to jam with. And at the time, it was funny because most of the big Silicon Valley names and all the stuff that you read on TechCrunch, no one gave a shit about the outside world. Like, TechCrunch was primarily covering American news, and a lot of it's very Valley-centric.
Yes.
And all the VC firms that I would want to meet and reach out to, no one cared about what was going on here in Southeast Asia. But there was one brand, though, which stood out. It was 500 Startups.
Yep.
Dave himself had made multiple trips down to Southeast Asia, and he'd be on Haji Lane in Singapore smoking shisha of entrepreneurs, and that kind of got him into companies like Vicky, which eventually was sold for $200 million and other things. And so I kind of respected that. It kind of didn't fit the negative stereotype of being too American centric, sort of. And I said, I have to meet Dave McClure. So I tried all ways, like different ways of different intros, and I couldn't really score a meeting with him. But eventually, through some U.S. embassy connections, somehow I managed to trick his PA at a time that was somebody important.
Nice.
Yeah, so Dave granted me an audience, and early in the morning, it was like 7 a.m. after he did a Geeks on a Plane trip, 2 weeks out in Brazil or something crazy like that. And so it was a morning slot. He was sleepy as shit. He's like, who the fuck are you? Why am I meeting you again? And I told him, that's because I tricked your PA, man. Like, I told her I was important. And
that's hustle right there, man.
That's it, props. Man. That's it. So we jammed for a little bit. He really liked my story and how I got to the Valley. You know what? Tell you how I hustled. I'll tell you about that specific hustle.
Tell us the story.
Okay, so Says.com, as I mentioned, it was a media company, and we did some work for the U.S. Embassy. They had this one program called the IVLP, International Visitor Leadership Program. It sounds boring as shit. But what happened was they wanted the U.S. Embassy in Malaysia wanted to nominate me for this program. So I started Googling it. I was like, wait a minute. Tony Blair's been on it. Nicolas Sarkozy's been on it. All the prime ministers of my country has been on it. This is like something that
somewhat legit.
Yeah, this is legit. You like go for it before you become prime minister. So I was like, why me? And so it turns out there was a time where Obama was big on Muslim country entrepreneurship and developing bilateral relations or whatever. And so I'm not Muslim, but I'm in a Muslim country, and I happen to be an entrepreneur. And I did some good work for the Malaysian U.S. Embassy in Malaysia, and so they wanted me on this program. And so when I got to the States under this program, the program basically means they would connect me with people I want to be connected with. They take me on tour to multiple states and meet with like important people in case I become an important person someday. And but what the people in the U.S. didn't get at the time was that they didn't get the memo that I wasn't going to be prime minister, right? I wasn't a political figure. I'm just a local entrepreneur. Right. And so a lot of people thought I was somebody pretty important. And so I used that card to hustle my way to Dave.
I love it.
That was self there. But there were a few things though, Jay. I'll tell you, when I started to spend time in the Valley, I got Dave to invite me on one of his famous Geeks on a Plane trips. We went to Tokyo, Hong Kong, China together. And later on, based on a relationship, he invited me to become 500 Startups' first entrepreneur in residence in their batch, the famous accelerator batches. And so
that's right. I think that's what I met you.
That's when we met.
That
was it. Yep. That's when we met.
That must have been what, 2012? I want to say.
Yeah, kind of.
Around
it was
there.
in that period. Yeah. It seems like a blur to me now, but So when I started to spend time there working with like quote unquote Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, I was shocked. I was shocked because number one, it's almost as though there's no such thing as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. These people came from all around the world. You know, in the accelerator itself, there were Russian accents, there were like Japanese accents. People came from everywhere to Silicon Valley to build companies. So it was more rare that you find someone who lived and grown up in Mission Street in San Francisco or something and became an entrepreneur. That was like, I didn't meet as many of those. I met a lot of international people. People came from out of town. That's number one. Second thing I found out was that a lot of people in Silicon Valley were not any much smarter than the people I met in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. They're not any smarter than people I met in Hong Kong. They were just everyone's just hustling, and that's what we all have in common. We're all in the dark, and we're all trying to figure things out. But the third thing I realized is that in Silicon Valley, there was a world of difference in anywhere else in the world. Was that Silicon Valley? If you build a company there, you would likely have some very useful friends.
Right.
You would have friends that you could meet at a bar, who was a product manager at Facebook or knew some other VCs who would give you some advice which was actually applicable. Whereas that if you grew up in Hong Kong or you grew up in Malaysia, Singapore, or whatever, at the time, most of your friends are doing things which were less useful to you.
Correct.
Right? So you didn't have any friends in high places, any friends connect you with capital or resources or find you your next kind of like a CTO or something. You just had less useful friends if you were building a startup. And it was then I said that it kind of demystified Silicon Valley for me. It was in a place where everyone are unicorn magicians running around. It's just a place where hustlers meet, and except that there's more friends. So I told myself, I said, this can't be right. Like, we need to be in a world where everyone has friends who can help them. You know, it can't be concentrated in one place. And coincidentally, that's how a lot of people at 500 felt as well. And that's how Dave felt. And that's what the mission of 500 was to do, was to wire up the rest of the world so entrepreneurs can be supported by other entrepreneurs in peer circles, and everyone can build companies a little bit more with a higher degree of success, higher chance, a higher probability of success. So that way, the innovation and the proliferation of wealth creation didn't need to be concentrated in one place, in one country. You know, we'd have a world where income disparity and wealth distribution is more equitable, or at least you have more opportunity, access to opportunity. And it began with something as simple as making sure people had useful friends who can help them.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting actually, because interesting point and story that you come up with, because one of the reasons that I was attracted to your crew there at 500 Startups was just that, was the sort of international aspect of it. And I remember distinctly Dave talking to, I want to say it was either PG or Sam Altman at one point, and they were all, you know, YC guys are all, obviously they're like, okay, Silicon Valley is the only place that you can build a startup. Kind of like Wall Street's the only place that, you know, the finances happens in the world.
Yep.
Dave obviously is on the other end of the spectrum. And I really think that it's very enjoyable, and I enjoy sitting back and watching his crusade around the world, basically spreading the gospel, that, you know, there's tons of pockets of innovation, globally.
Absolutely.
And it's, you know, I think it'll be quite interesting to see how the game ends, or, I mean, it's not going to end, but what the score is going to be in, say, 10, 15 years time.
Oh, it's going to be such a different world, man, I'm telling you. And,
it is, right?
And like even the world that we spoke of in 2013 or whatnot, like it's already changed so much. Like today, you've got other crusaders like Jack Ma, for example, you know, showing you can have an idea, you can build a company out of China that's bigger than Amazon and eBay combined.
That's right.
And just this one, and Mahayoshi, son of SoftBank, you know, he's clearly funding and fueling some of the biggest companies around the world with how SoftBank invests. And more you'll see other business leaders from around the world tell their story. And the media machine, because you see a lot of it is interrelated to media, because the whole world consumes a lot of American media, right?
That's right.
In fact. And so a lot of the perception of what the world is, it goes through that lens. And so the Jack Ma's and the Mahayoshi sons are getting more coverage by global media / Western American media, and hence like these stories are starting to become more mainstream.
Right.
And so this is the beginning, because the innovation already exists everywhere, and these big companies exist everywhere, and now the stories are being told. So it's not to say that these large companies and innovations and they do not exist. It's just that the stories are less told. And now the stories are getting more told. And so I think the storytelling is as important as the actual existence of all of this innovation that we talk about. And I'm really proud to be able to be fighting this crusade alongside other individuals who are out to build these companies, to fund and support these companies, as well as to tell their stories. Because 500 Startups we pride ourselves to at least be a bit marketing centric, to have like a very large angel list following, large Twitter, Facebook following. We have a few personalities within 500 Startups who are local legends. And maybe this is where we can segment the story to the next phase of it, right? Where I got myself more involved with 500. I just fell in love with what they wanted to do for the world. And so I decided to come up with an idea with Dave. I told Dave, I said, hey, Dave, why not you let me run the 500 show in Southeast Asia? And he's like, okay, that's an idea, but I'm not sure if you're the right guy. He said, you know what, Dave? I'm not sure if I'm the right guy either, but it's going to be fun. And so from that, we came up with a little MVP to create a fund called 500 Durians.
Ah, right, yes.
Yeah, so that's where we created a Southeast Asia dedicated fund. And it was only $10 million US. It'd be easy enough for me to raise. I raised that pretty quickly. I would use that as a working model of a micro fund that if it works, we will have a playbook that we can replicate in many parts of the world. Right. And so that was the idea. And so I went to work. Within a short span of a couple of months, I was investing in, I think it was 70 companies in the first years. And so we expanded the fund to $25 million US. We ended up investing in a total of 120 companies in 2 years, which represented about 20% of all the publicized deals in the region at the time. We were fortunate enough to be early in companies like Grab, which is a $3.5 billion company today.
Yep.
Early in Carousel and Bukalapak. And these companies are what we call centaurs, which are 100 million to almost a billion. And the odds are looking pretty good. Out of 120 companies, we have 40 companies who have went beyond seed. One company is written off. 3 companies look like they're going to die. But for the most part, 40 of them have gone to the next stage. And a lot of them are still very new. So things are looking pretty good. Now, as a result of doing all of that, what we discovered was the playbook itself on how we can replicate that. And so I went to work to help to replicate that. Working alongside Dave, we recruited fund managers in Thailand, specifically Vietnam, Japan, Korea, Middle East, Turkey specifically, Canada. We started to recruit fund managers for vertical specific funds like fintech and mobile. And so, so we sprouted out 10 different micro funds, and we're putting the playbook to work, and the playbook to work where if we can get local legends, serial entrepreneurs and experts in their field and turn them into a fund manager and operate a micro fund to invest at scale and to create these communities, local communities, entrepreneurs supporting each other. When we seed enough companies, it creates a critical mass. It sparks a startup revolution that will attract Series A, B, C, D investors to invest in that region or that vertical. So that is the thesis. And we're in the midst of it right now. Right. We're, going through the kinks, trying to work out the kinks, and as with any startup story or any good endeavor, not everything goes to plan. So we're kind of navigating around things, augmenting, iterating, this playbook across, and in 2017 you'll see version 2 of the playbook, and we'll be piling on some new funds based on the learnings we have from what I call batch 0 of what I call 500 VCs. And at some point we talk about how the world will look in 5 to 10 years. I'd like the world to have 500 VCs operating on a model where we can turn entrepreneurial and expert talent into fund managers and support the next generation of startup revolution in every part of the world.
What do you say to people, to critiques that come in and say, look, these guys at 500, they are all over the map. They're spreading themselves too thin. They are spraying and praying. They don't know what they're doing. How can you be a master of all? What do you say to when you hear things like that, directed towards you directly or to 500 in general?
Well, I've heard critiques like that all my life about me, so I'm kind of an expert in ignoring a lot of things in my life. And I think that to the extent you can ignore unimportant things to your mission, it correlates with your success. And so at the same time, though, that a lot of these critiques are very valid and important because we see a lot of the struggles internally as we try to do what we do. I'll tell you a bit about scalability. What scales well is when every single new customer you take on, the experience gets better. That's scaling. If every customer you power on, the experience per customer gets poorer, you're not scaling. And so with that in mind, to scale 500 startups to the ambitions that we have, to be able to fund hundreds and thousands of startups in every corner on earth, successful startups, I might add, every new startup we power needs to have a better and better experience. And so this is something that we're trying to work through. And we've got different cases where it is very, very true and cases where it is not true. And so how can we deal with it and work with it? What I do is I love paying attention to the internal critiques from my team, from my portfolio, from my entrepreneurs, and from my investors, for the LPs who invest in us. That's why when I met you at Pre-Money, and I really appreciate the support because I know you invested in Fund 2, right? I think it was, right?
Yep.
I really appreciate early believer right here is that when we interface with you guys, when we have the LP events where there are hundreds of you come together and we hear you out, that's the stuff I want to pay attention to. Now, the people who don't matter as much, the haters are going to hate, players going to play, got to shake them off, right? Wise words of wisdom, Taylor Swift right there. That's right. I mean, that stuff will continue forever. And the way the media machine works is that the more successful you get and the more in the public eye you'll get, more journalists want to pull you down, more people who armchair commentators want to pull you down, and that's okay. That's just part of the game, right? It's part of the journey, right? So I got to be very cognizant of what I pay attention to and how do I sequence and prioritize what to fix. So that's kind of like the general philosophical response. But at the core of it, the direct response to like the spray and pray and the thing, like our funds have been delivering consistent returns. And in the world of fund management, a lot of LPs do vintage diversification, which means they don't know, even if it's a good VC, they don't know which fund actually is going to return money because if they didn't strike the Googles and the Facebooks, they may not return as much money. So they try to invest in multiple vintages of the same fund so they can diversify across. Well, we are baking diversification into one fund by investing in many companies. And it's producing very predictable returns. And this predictability is a new thing for something as risky as startup investing. This predictability and diversification is a very new thing for seed investing, where it's perceived to be even riskier. Well, taking that risk away is our intention.
That's right.
And we'll take another 5 years to show across multiple funds that we've launched that we've achieved this. But this is what we believe in, and this is what we work on every day.
Okay, so let's take it down one further level. Let's take it to the more granular level of what Khailee does on a day-to-day basis. So you're obviously, whatever you want to call it, spray or pray or savvy investing. Let's call it savvy investing. You probably see hundreds and hundreds of pitch decks that cross your desk every single day. So what differentiates a company that comes across your desk? What makes it a good product versus a fundable product? Okay,
so first off, if you're thinking about granular level and what I do day to day, building quality deal pipelines, I would say is as important or even more important than this whole nuance of selection. I'll tell you why. Let's say, Jay Kim, you're a popular guy with a popular show, and so people know you. They want you. They want you in their deals as you're well connected. So you're going to see more deals, and you're going to see deals hopefully from people who are good entrepreneurs.
Right.
Now, you've got good friends, so your friends will share deals with you. Now, if you pick 10 deals that your high-profile friends that you've had on the show, the Danny Youngs, the Gary V's, if they're going to pass you a deal, they've looked at it, and their reputation's at stake if they pass you a piece of turd.
Right.
Now, they're not going to pass you some turds. They're going to filter that through before they pass it to you. Now, if you look at 10 deals from your friends versus 10 deals that are spam or 10 deals that you just randomly bump to at some event, even if you are a shit stock picker, you're terrible at selection, you would pick from a pool of 10 good companies.
That's right.
Right? So with that kind of extreme example in mind, what we do at 500 is with a very visible media brand and with very tight relationships with co-investors and I pride myself in respecting these relationships and respecting the media attention we get, especially in Southeast Asia where I operate 500 durians, especially now in our second fund. I respect that a lot and I cultivate that because that's the source of a lot of good deals. And my entrepreneurs, now we have 100 plus the 10 new companies in Fund 2, we've got 130 companies. Now my entrepreneurs, they get a lot of deals too because they're the local heroes.
Right.
They get deals from their alumni network and whatnot. And they're going to pass me deals that they think is good. And their reputation's at stake. I respect those relationships. I look at those deals. Now, having an influx of highly recommended deals is a privilege. And the ability to invest in many companies becomes easier because I'm selecting from a curated pool of deals. And this takes years for Dave. He spent 20 years in the Valley to build this relationship network. I spent years building it in Southeast Asia, and that's something we cultivate and respect. And so when we quote unquote select a lot of companies, we're selecting from a very good pool. So number two, now the filters we have, we're very strict with the filters we have, and this may go against a lot of conventional filters. And so you ask a question about a good company versus a fundable company. I like companies who understand unit economics, who have a very clear sense of who the customer is, and who have returning customers, and who have an idea on how to spend money to get them. Classically, this is a 500 way.
Right.
Now, will these companies, will they have like huge grand scheme, like huge unicorn level ambitions, ideas? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what we do know is that they're pretty fundable if they can get themselves to a working product and they got options and they can grow from there. And so because of this, today I look at my portfolio and we have a lot of companies which can weather any storm. They don't. Some are in a position where they don't need to even fundraise because their cash flow break even.
Right.
I've got companies where when I invested in them, they're profitable, and today they're still profitable. And so even though I'm a seed investor, I seem to be only check in there because they just don't need even more money. And I love being part of these companies. And I'm not to say
such a great,
it's a great place to be. It's not to say like I avoid companies who spend a lot of money to grow. I mean, I'm obviously invested in companies like Grab, right? And these fast growing machines, there's at the time of seed investing, you just never know which one's going to be the big one. All of them look kind of the same. Strong entrepreneurs, good teams, kind of clear sense of product, business model you may be familiar with. But which of them will become the fast-growing unicorns is so hard to know in the early stages. It's so hard to know. And that's where selecting from a good pool and selecting many of them comes in.
Right. Okay. So let's not to pick favorites now, but from the companies in your portfolio, and let's not talk about Grab. We obviously know about that one, or the Centaurs. Can you give us one or two companies that you're very excited about? Not to pick favorites again. I'm a parent now, so I fully understand that I love both of my daughters equally.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so you're asking for me to pick out some of my companies I'm most excited about. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll give you two things. One is a trend impacting emerging market e-commerce investing, and that leads to the companies that I really like. Now, what do we see with e-commerce, how e-commerce developed in developed markets is you start with a lot of the horizontal marketplaces, the eBays and Amazons. Right. And then later on, you see the honest company, you see kind of niche companies built on verticals. Well, with Southeast Asia, what's happened is that a lot of the platform companies, the Lazadas and the Bukalapaks, and Carousels, they kind of like platform to sell anything and everything. They're kind of there. Yep. Right now, we're going into the age of verticals. Now, with this verticals, it's also spurred by something else, is that customer acquisition cost has never been this high. Facebook and Google are bidding platforms. So the more players there are, the more expensive it gets.
Right.
A lot of people don't model this into their projections. And as a result, you may have a lot of e-commerce companies which are going through a tough time. Now, what I'm really, really pleased about is a pool of companies that I've selected, because I kind of knew that was the case in a lot of developed markets, so emerging markets would go in this path. I picked a lot of like product companies who create their own products or have like at least a exclusive set of products, so that way they don't have to play the commodity game and fight with other people who have the same products. Because if you wanted to buy a pair of Nike shoes, you could go on Zappos, you could go on Amazon, you could go on Nike shoes, you can go anywhere. You're going to look for the cheapest price, right? That's commodity game. But if you're going to get Warby Parker, you're going to get it from Warby Parker, right? And if, let's say you get Warby Parker off Amazon, that's because, like, you still get it from Warby Parker anyway. You know what I mean? So investing in the Warby Parkers, like, that's something that I care about. One such company is a company called Brodo, BRO.do.
BRO.do. Okay.
When I met these guys, they were skeptical. They haven't even heard of venture capital, man. You know, they were like kids in university who thought it'd be a cool idea to make their own shoes.
Right.
And that's what they did. And they sold it off Instagram. The first run was 30 shoes, which was completely sold out on Instagram. And they continued just selling on Instagram, selling e-commerce. Now, when I told them about venture capital and talked to them, they were like, they didn't believe it. They were like, not interested. I don't know what kind of weird scheme you have. Not interested. 6 months later, after cajoling them and their friends, and working through like common contacts here in Indonesia, they decided to take a closer look at what I had to offer. So I wanted to put together a round with other VCs. A lot of VCs who looked at them said that, hey, they're not a tech company. They're like a shoe company. I'm like, that's right. But Jakarta itself has 25 million Facebook users you can advertise to, and of which 18 million of them are millennials. And Brodo has a cult following. Every shoe they produce gets sold out. I mean, they're onto something. And so I did the deal alone, and that's rare for 500 startups, because we don't mind. We kind of like investing with other investors as well. But I did it alone, and so when I invested in them, they're doing $1 million plus US dollars GMV and profitable. Now they just closed out 2016 doing about more than $3 million US dollars and still profitable. And their return, based on modeling after their return users and the cohorts of returning users, without any additional funding, 2017 they'll easily clear $5 million US dollars worth of sales.
Wow.
So why do I love a company like Brodo? Is because I can tie in venture debt. Venture debt is not as it's still quite new in Southeast Asia, but like the folks who provide venture debt, they've been providing venture debt to a lot of my companies as well, and I can jack Brodo up with venture debt, and I don't need to rely on other VCs to put money in. That way, as a seed investor, I don't get diluted so much, and the founder doesn't get diluted so much, and we may do a very large VC round much later. But for now and the following 1 or 2 years, they can grow on organic profits, and they can grow on getting debt and inventory financing. Now, this is a beautiful position to be in when you look at Indonesia and you notice that most of the shoes are imported, that most of the expensive shoes are imported. Import tariffs are high, they're pretty expensive. And so Brodo's making export quality shoes with a cult following. And now they've got 6 stores. When they opened their stores, like I saw pictures of it, it was like they launched an iPhone 8 or something. People are lining up all the way to the center of the mall. and they're so innovative. They're giving a free shoe cleaning, lifetime shoe cleaning. Like, so if you buy a Brodo shoe, you come back, they'll clean your shoe to fix your shoe for free. If you need new materials, then you need to pay for the material. But they've been having their customers bring their other shoes to them to fix. And they're like, yeah, all right, we'll fix your other shoes for free too, even though you didn't buy from Brodo, but you're a Brodo customer. So they're building this following of returning customers right to their business, and it's cool. It's so cool. Now
it's like back to basics, right?
Yeah, man. And so this is just one example. I've got another one doing headscarves. It's called Hijab.
Yep.
Hijab's like 2 months away from cash flow break even. All the seed investors we immediately put more money and insiders round into it, because in December they had 77% of returning buyers, and that's trailing off average. The whole average of you is 60% returning buyers. You know, they clear easily in December. They cleared 300 grand worth of GMV in 1 month alone, spending only 8,000 in fully loaded customer acquisition costs. Yeah. And there's another baby wipes company, like kind of like the honest company in Southeast Asia. They're called Apple Crumbie. They produce their own wipes, which organic wipes with margins up to 70% as well. And it's these companies, man, I'm telling you, that create products that people love and want with cult following. They don't have to be slave to the Facebook and Google platform game.
That's right.
They don't need to spend too much money on customer acquisition because they spend it once and the customers keep coming back. It's as simple as that. Back to basics, man. So I picked out these 3 companies just to tell you a bit of a story and insight into emerging market investing. In every single emerging market, there's a lot of people who don't want to pay import prices for foreign products, who want good stuff, who want really good stuff, and they will be loyal to this good stuff.
Hey. All right, man. Listen, I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have a couple more questions for you, okay? You've been I'm gonna label this again to you, okay? You're not gonna like it, but you've been a successful entrepreneur. You've built a number of companies. You've exited them. You've pretty much proven yourself to be a very successful investor, angel investor, and institutional investor. you, for the audience that doesn't know, you've also been featured on the cover of Men's Health. Just plug you there for that. So it seems like you've done quite a good job, and you're only turning 32, 33. So what do you have in store for 2017? What are your goals, and what do you want to achieve in this next several years while you're there at 500?
All right. Okay, this is a good question. Now, okay, this is kind of what I care about right now, and I think this is how the story, not just my story, but I think the story of tech and the story of capitalism is evolving. And we're going to get some deep stuff over here, but I'm going to try to be as open about it as possible. The world's at a state of dissatisfaction because the middle class is feeling all these things, and then like the people who are trying to make it, they're trying to move to the city and they're trying to get by. So they're powering the sharing economy. They're the Uber drivers and the Grab drivers, but I don't know how far they're succeeding as well. I'm sure you've taken Ubers in San Francisco and you talk to the drivers. I don't think they're very happy people.
Right.
In fact, there's a lot of people in San Francisco who are not happy at all because all the tech bros are moving in, jacking rent up, and everything's getting all gentrified and getting more expensive. And it's creating a lot of distance between the haves and have-nots. And I think, I don't get too political in the U.S. because that's not my area of expertise, but of course people in the Midwest weren't very happy, and a lot of them did vote for Trump as well. And so, and that's not just an American story, it's the same in a lot of emerging markets too. So I live in Malaysia where there's a lot of folks who are not happy. In Indonesia, they had riots here in Jakarta about the local government. There is a big swath of people who feel that they've been left out of the capitalistic machine. They've been left out of the new economy. They're not part of it, and they're getting disintermediated. And so, because the world is in this state right now, I, for one, care a lot about questioning the root of capitalism itself. Like how can we augment capitalism to be more inclusive? How can we be more financially inclusive? And it almost builds a bit of disgust sometimes where you go to some pitch events, let's say in Silicon Valley, where some entrepreneur is telling you, yeah, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to revolutionize food delivery. And that way your kind of ramen can arrive 2 minutes faster than Uber Eats or something. And there are all these people migrating to Lagos and all these people moving to the city and trying to make ends meet. And the whole world, there's so much suffering in this world. And you're going to help some folks in San Francisco get their ramen 2 minutes faster? Well, fuck you. You're not changing the world, and I don't care. Because it's a very noble thing to get your ramen 2 minutes faster, because I would like my ramen 2 minutes faster, but don't say you're changing the world. Don't say that. You're not, okay? You're just changing ramen speed. Okay, so how does it get resolved is that we need to have a conversation around compassionate capitalism, where you're treating people better, where you're kind of including more people with the businesses you build, and you're kind of including other countries in the tech startup game. We want to get some countries who do not have as many seed investments, make sure they've got a ton of seed investments so they can have a trickle-down effect or a ripple effect where local heroes breed more stories of local heroes, where the saviors of the economy, they don't have to be somebody from another country. It could be your neighbor. You could build big companies. Your neighbor could build a big company, so you can build a big company too. You can take the economy in your own hands.
Right.
And so, and that's going to help more countries. You don't have apart from rich become rich and poor become poor, at least you have richer countries, poorer countries. We don't have rich countries become rich and poor countries become poor. At least you can have a more even kind of countries being kind of satisfied with their financial state, and they feel like they've got a seat at the table and they're playing a game. They can be good at playing a game. And so that way they don't have to resort to joining ISIS. The people who are left out and displaced in the world, they don't feel they've got to resort to crime. They don't have to resort to petty theft, and they don't have to resort to joining terrorism to be able to make ends meet. We need to include them in the winning game. So, in short, I would love to spread weapons of mass creation to everyone. It seems here today that we're spreading math and science. As we're teaching math and science to as many kids in the world as possible, and still not enough kids know math and science because we think math and science is important. Well, you know what? Taking matters in your own hands and building businesses, now that's a skill that everybody should learn as well. And I think that's part of the story. One day, 50, 60 years maybe, I don't know, from now, everyone feels that they can become a micropreneur of their own, and the whole structure of jobs and employment, sharing economy will be the norm. Everyone can kind of freelance with multiple gigs. Everyone's kind of like small business owner, kind of back in the old days, where everyone's kind of a little blacksmith or artisanal jam maker or something, everyone's got their own game, and everyone's all part of this system that hopefully would be a bit more equitable than the dark ages.
Right.
And so that's kind of where it kind of strings together. But there's one more thing, Jay, apart from the financial economic game itself.
What's that?
When does it end? How much money is enough? Right? If you go to Costco right now, you and I, let's take a walk in Costco, man. How many bags of carrots do you want, man? How many bags of carrots do you need to have? How much paper towels do you want? And if the spirit of consumerism overrides everything else, nothing is ever enough. You will buy more paper towels you don't need, Jay. You're going to buy more cars, more houses, more whatever. You just buy all this, buy. And because you're buying all this shit, companies just want to produce more shit. So they're going to rape Earth, they're going to kill animals, they're going to do all kinds of crazy shit just because they want to get your money.
Yep.
So your money is making them do all this shit, man.
It's a vicious circle, man.
And it's not going to end. It's not going to end. So it's
man, you're going really deep here. So tell me about yourself then. So what are you gonna do about this whole thing?
Me, I don't want to fix anybody else's life. I'm just fix my own, and that's why I did in 2016. I'm a minimalist now. I give away a ton of my shit. I operate in 6 to 7 units of clothes, and I made me and my partner Eliza. We've put on a map of like 50 years financial model on how much we can give away every single year. That's like my operating system.
Awesome.
Like when it comes to even so we were tracking our finances on how little can we live on, so we have more to give away, and we're just building it into the model. And it's not, that's
something you don't hear very
and it's
often.
not easy because we're used to a lot of comforts, man. Like just now I'm actually under the weather right now. I've got a bit of a flu, so I broke my fever and I was sweating and I had like my shirt was damp. And what did I do? I had to buy a new shirt because I didn't want to be cold on this call, right? I didn't want to fall more ill. So I've got the privilege of being able to buy a shirt whenever I want, right? And so it pained me to go buy a new shirt because I'm trying to live on less, right? So that's one. And what I'm doing for myself as well is also the food I eat. Like throughout last year, I've been experimenting with dieting and fitness. You mentioned the men's health thing. I was eating so much meat, man, just to get my protein. I was eating so much eggs. I was farting at my colleagues in their face all the time. And I cut out eggs, I cut out pork, I cut out beef, I cut. And now I've been vegan for 8 months plus, strictly vegan.
Wow.
And it's easy, man. I'm measuring my body fat and my mass. I'm still lean, I'm still fit, I'm still strong. I can still go through what I want to go through and physically, and I love it. And I don't have to, awesome. I can be on this earth and plants is enough for me. I can be powered by plants. I even went for full blood tests. I've been monitoring. I quantify a lot of my health. I'm great. I'm doing great.
Amazing.
And so if I can live on earth without eating any animals or hurting any animals, if I can live on earth without needing to buy a ton of shit all the time, I'm sure that makes a difference to me at least and the people around me. And if I can live this example, and I can go through life without needing more validation, ego stroking, and from other people. I have enough self-love for myself. I think I would have more energy to provide for other people. And so that's where it's going to lead. And I don't know what's going to happen, man. You asked me 5-7 years. I don't know. I just know that this is the new operating system that I'm operating on. I've uninstalled the previous system, added some new features, fixed a couple of bugs. This is the new release of my Khailee Ng iOS app, right?
I love it. And it's so refreshing, especially in this sort of industry that you're in, that I'm in. It's just one direction only for the most part. So I like seeing this innovative iOS that you've installed. I might need to get a copy of that.
Oh man, I'm telling you, man. And this is the next thing. We're gonna go into this post-capitalistic world. I hope humanity go through another Renaissance era where they're going to integrate not just science and arts, but also spirituality. They're going to integrate financial know-how. And the more human beings can integrate their emotions, their logic, their capitalistic ability with the spiritual quest, and if they can include a lot of people in this quest, the world's problems are going to be solved by people helping people, by people being kind to people, people just loving each other and loving themselves. That's how a lot of the world's issues are going to be solved. And it's not going to be solved by me. It's going to be solved by all of us. By Jay Kim, man, and all the guests on the Jay Kim show, man. This is the
one
new
podcast
narrative.
Guest at a time.
Damn right, man.
Dude, thanks so much, man. Thanks for the honesty at the end there. You went really deep. I don't know what's in that spinach you're eating, but I want to get my hands on some. I know you're a little bit under the weather, so I hope you feel better. But thanks for your time, Khailee. I really appreciate it. What is the best place that my listeners can find you, follow you? Where do you want their
Yeah,
attention?
Facebook is the center of it all right now. So if you go to facebook.com/Khailee, everything's there. I also have a website called Khailee.com where it links to all my other social media presence. And I'll be posting up more writing. I hope to do more video this year to kind of include this in the broader narrative. Just include my story in the broader narrative so we can discuss these things as things evolve. And so on Instagram, it's Khailee Ng, Khaileeng.
Nice.
And you can follow me, and I would love to meet other like minds who are on the same quest,
Amazing. Yeah, join our quest, man. Join the quest. All right, Khailee, thanks so much. We'll link it all up for you, and I can't wait to hang out again, man. Let me know when you're
That's right, man. I'm down pretty soon, man. I'll drop you a text, man. All right. Jay, it's been my pleasure. I love you very much.
Take care, brother.
Take care.
Yep.
All right, bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. All the show notes and links can be found over at jkimshow.com. Come back often and make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Don't forget to join us next week for another exciting episode of The Jay Kim Show. I'd love to hear your comments. You can find me on Twitter at jaykimmer, JAYKIMMER. See you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Hack Your Fitness, the high achiever's guide to getting ripped in under 3 hours a week. If you're anything like me, you're probably working a full-time job or jobs and trying to find time to balance family life, social life, and last but not least, fitness. Look, I get it. I'm a full-time investor and entrepreneur myself, and father of two. So how am I able to stay fit year-round without spending hours and hours in the gym killing myself on the cardio machine? After struggling for the last 15 years trying every workout and diet under the sun, I finally designed a system that allows me to achieve and maintain single-digit body fat for life in under 3 hours a week. Cardio not required. Head on over to hackyour.fitness and download my free 13-page guide that teaches you the simple science behind efficient fitness and smart nutrition and gives you everything you need to know to finally take control of your life. That's hackyour.fitness.